Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 381 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. The past week has been all about the move home. I'm glad to say the office is getting there, but the honey room, well, that's another story. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. Hi everyone, and welcome to my brand new office. I think it's looking pretty settled and quite smart, even though I say so myself. Desks and computers are in, the honey shelves are all set up, and I'm gradually migrating my books, accounts and microscopy gear over from the old office and into our new office. The honey room, on the other hand, is still a bit of a challenge. I'll explain more of that in a moment or two. First, a little roundup of apiary visits, the weather, and how things are going at the workshop. Even though we're in the drier part of the UK, we've still seen some pretty heavy rain over the last week. It has been chilly too, with a couple of mornings of windscreen scraping to clear the truck. I obviously got the short straw in the coin toss of mixed metaphors when deciding who would drive what truck. I have the old truck. You will have seen it in various videos en route to the garage for the next repair probably. And Steph has the slightly newer truck. That's the one with the heated seats and heated front windscreen. Lucky her. We actually decided it was best that way round, as the older truck is far more practical for all of the local stuff that we do, and actually being a little bit more battered, I can put up with the odd bramble scratch down the side as we drive through the apiaries. Not literally through the apiaries, but you get what I mean. I'm a little more precious about the newer truck. I say newer truck, it is 10 years old now. Newer to me. Talking old truck and garage, it's back in for more work. For diagnostic work on the heater that, well, doesn't heat, and a coolant level that keeps dropping with no signs of a leak. There will come a time, I suspect, where I may have to say enough is enough, but actually I love driving it. It's a brilliant workhorse and it is so versatile. We can get a really good number of supers into the back. The inspection gear can be secured away from the cab, and all in all, apart from the occasional wear and tear type of repair, which seemed to happen quite often last year, it does work really well. Anyway, the weather has been seasonally inclement. Hats and woolly jumpers are currently the order of the day, and look to be so for the next couple of weeks. It is the beginning of February after all. But not long now. The next 6 weeks will fly by, and then a little spring warmth will see activity levels ramp up dramatically, and we'll be off and running into the new season. So, 6 weeks of intense work in and around the apiaries and workshop to get prepared to match the bees for work rate as they launch into another reproductive phase. Around the apiaries, life is happily quiet, with bursts of activity from the bees when the weather allows. And it's just how it should be right now. Over at the farm apiary, this is our main Langstroth production colony apiary, all is well. No sign of woodpeckers, and actually I couldn't be happier with the way these bees have overwintered so far. Hefting all of the hives takes just a few minutes and is reassuring in that the weight of all of the hives is still well above a level that would cause me any concern. I really want the brood nest areas cleared out of any honey now. Have you noticed the evenings are getting lighter? At least the late afternoons are getting lighter. I'm sure the bees keep looking out and say to each other, "Oh, the nights are drawing out now, won't be long." It's a helpful indicator of what might be happening in the hive. As days lengthen, our colonies will have their queens laying a few more eggs each day, and the colony will grow strongly. That said, Be realistic of what to expect from your bees if they are a small cluster of bees. These colonies will take longer to build up, and you won't see as much activity at the entrance as you will with your strongest hives. Make a note of those quieter hives and have a little look inside to make sure that all is well. Some will be larger than you think, so do be cautious when you lift the roof off if you aren't wearing your bee suit or veil. So these colonies are fairly well set right now to survive through to the spring and the start of the new season. In fact, all of our colonies right now look set to go through into the new season, so on current numbers we're looking at an approximate 2% overall loss for this winter, and I'll take that in any season. Moving across to the paddock apiary, this is the nursery site for mainly 14 by 12 nukes. Everything here is looking good too. I appreciate it makes for a fairly straightforward podcast, but there really isn't anything dramatic to report with our bees, and that's just how it ought to be for everyone at this time of the year. The fishing lakes apiaries, likewise, are nice and quiet at the moment. I visited late in the week, and although it was cold, maybe 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, there were still bees out on cleansing flights, so all good here. The two apiaries here are split between Langstroth and 14 by 12 nukes mostly, with a sprinkling of full-size hives again in both apiaries. Over winter, I do tend to cram as many hives into these two apiaries as possible. Spring brings a flush of pollen and nectar, particularly from willow trees at the fishing lakes, and the bees gorge themselves on it. It makes for a strong brood nest, rapid growth, and let's face it, rapid growth at this important time of the year is really important, as the larvae require large amounts of protein in the form of pollen in order to grow into well-formed adult worker bees. Finally, over at the allotment apiary, again, flying bees on cleansing flights, but otherwise, Hefting confirms that they all have enough food stores, and generally the nukes are in great shape. These are the 14 by 12 nukes with the one solitary garage roof nuke. And that is a quick tour of the apiaries as we stand at the beginning of February. There may be 1 or 2 more losses before the winter is out, but anything up to 5%, and I'll take that. Thinking back to the fishing lakes apiaries, I really do need to get over there while it's cold and trim back some of the brambles in both apiaries. They really do encroach quickly if left to their own devices, and once that tip hits the ground, it roots and forms a handy little trip hazard, as both I and Steph have discovered. Over at the workshop, I've made several changes, and I don't think I'm alone in this, but once everything has been tidied and all of those keep it just in case it comes in handy items have been finally thrown away, I don't think I'm alone in this, but once everything's been tidied and all of those keep it just in case it comes in handy items have been finally thrown away, I discovered I actually have quite a lot of space now. Why on earth do I keep all of that junk that might just be useful but never is? Time for a new mindset on a lot of those things, I suspect. It's just as well that I've made more space. The unit here in Norwich still has plenty of equipment and other junk that I've just mentioned, the maybe useful kind of kit, and it mostly needs a home or the bin. Work to clear the unit is coming along well though, and I'm leaving the extraction equipment until the very last moment, as I want to move that straight into its new old home, that being the honey room in the back of the garage. This is where I'm having the biggest challenge in terms of what to keep, what to store, and what to get rid of. As a reminder, my back of the garage honey room measures just 3 metres square compared to the 5 metres by 7 metres that we had at the unit. It's quite a change. I have a sink to install too. The availability of clean fresh water to wash equipment as well as sticky hands is something I would recommend if you're thinking of something similar. When I first set up the honey room, I simply carried a bowl or bucket of warm water from the kitchen, and that became something of a chore. With the sink and tap in there, it will certainly make life a little easier during the extraction sessions. I'll shoot a video as we progress the honey room because I know there are beekeepers out there who are keen to see how the layout will work, as they also want to convert garage space into a honey room. Here's a rundown briefly of how I see it in my mind. Imagine a second-hand UPVC French door set with a right-hand door opening into the honey room. That's at the front of the honey room. And then we've got our 3 metres square. Working round from the left-hand side, clockwise, we have the sink, then possibly a stainless steel 600mm wide table, then the appy melter, if it will fit in, and that will take up all of the wall on the left-hand side. Moving around, the next item will be the extractor with the sump and pump on the floor next to it, then probably one barrel, and finally another stainless steel table, this time about 1200mm long. And I think that will be about it. During extraction, I'll remove all the non-essential equipment from the room, but otherwise, for the most part, I'll have our Swenty bottling machine and settling tank on the bigger table, probably, still trying to work it out, and it is still very much a work in progress, so do look out for the videos. The main part of the garage was to be my Morris Minor workshop, but it's just not going to happen. There's simply not enough room. The poor little car will have to live outside on the drive while I repair it. The tools can stay in the garage, but I will need some of that room for sealed barrels of honey and spare jars and the like. It's all about managing the space I have, and although it's a challenge, it will be worth it in the end, I'm sure. An immediate positive change that I've had is that I was able to grab a coffee and pop out to the office early this morning without having to drive anywhere. And that was at 6:30. It's so much easier than having to commute, even a short distance. Leaving that behind now, elsewhere I've had a few comments regarding my refractometer video on YouTube. I think it must be the time of year where people are finding honey with excess water in it, or something like that, because the comments seem to have gone up quite a lot recently. Unfortunately, the comments are because I show how to use the refractometer, but don't show the reading through the eyepiece, so of course it's moans. I mean, they have a point, I guess, so I'm going to shoot the video again with a look through the eyepiece to show the reading this time. For those of you that aren't familiar with a refractometer, it's a way of checking the amount of water that you have in your honey. I'll come back to that when I shoot the video. Finally today, now might be a good time to start thinking about preparing to check for nosema. Any time from now through to early spring is an ideal time to carry out this check. You will need some equipment, which perhaps I'll cover off next week, along with maybe the entire process of how you test and also a bit more detail about nosema itself. For now, here's an overview. Currently, colonies are generally smaller, quieter, and the nosema test can reveal if an infection is present and, depending on the level of that infection, indicate what might need to be done to help the colony as the season begins. Over the years, I've looked at the effect of nosema on our colonies, and as our general understanding of the pathogen improves, my ability to understand what's happening, and in particular, my ability to help our bees maintain a healthy colony, improves. To begin with, it will help to understand the life cycle of nosema, and in particular, the life cycle of the 2 nosema species that are particularly relevant to our honeybees, Nosema apis and Nosema cerani. As it's a life cycle, we have to jump in at a given point and follow it around all the way back to the same point. Let's consider the starting point as being the moment one of our honeybees takes up a nosema spore. But first, a little more about nosema's biology. It's what's known as an obligate spore-forming microsporidion. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, and I apologise for that. Obligate simply means it needs a host to complete its life cycle. It couldn't, for instance, live and multiply in a beehive without infecting the honeybee. Spore forming is fairly self-explanatory. Part of its reproductive cycle includes the formation of millions of microscopic spores. Maybe think of them as seeds, tiny single-celled reproductive units that grow into a mature form of nosema to continue the life cycle. And Microsporidia is the scientific classification, the place in the huge tree of life that, given current understanding of this parasite, we place it. So, nosema. We're lucky to have only 2 to consider. There are something like 1,500 currently classified versions, and there could be possibly millions more as yet unclassified. But 2 is more than enough for us to contend with right now, so let's consider ourselves lucky and look at how our bees pick up this disease, and then we'll follow the life cycle through next week. Our adult worker honeybee is wandering around the hive, cleaning up, generally doing what we loosely term as housekeeping duties. This, unfortunately, is where the nosema spore is ingested. At this point, the spore is inactive, and it remains so until it enters the midgut of the honeybee. Now, although we don't want nosema in our hives, I can't help but be impressed by the mechanism it uses to infect and multiply within the honeybee. Be warned, it's a little bit of a horror show, so I'm going to save that all for next week. Remember, you have been warned. Well, that's it for this week. More of the ongoing change in location and the journey through these winter weeks as we head forward. But for all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,700 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for the beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible, no waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2026 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey, and you never know, there may be something there that will help improve your beekeeping. Check us out online at www.patreon.com/Norfolk Honey.